Hey guys, so for our presentation, we chose to do the Potawatomi Tribe. Danielle will be the first speaker and she will be discussing about who they are, what they value and believe, and how they live. As for myself, I will be discussing two cultural artifacts that I found interesting, and Sinian, the third speaker, will conclude with discussing about current issues and struggles they are facing today.
Who are they? The Potawatomi Indian translates to keepers of fire, and it also has a symbol. It symbolizes the alliances between the Potawatomi, Ottawa, and Ojibwe tribes against the Sioux and Iroquois. Potawatomi Indians were and still are thriving and very prosperous. It says on the official site of the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation that what they couldn't catch in lakes or hunt in forests, they acquired through trade and other tribes and later with non-Indians. Potawatomi Indians originated in Michigan around the Great Lakes area, but stated on Indians.org, they were forced away from their homeland and migrated into many other areas. They eventually settled in parts of Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio, and Illinois. Some settled in Canada, and they are still living there today. Their main language is English, with an effort to keep their native language alive. The most important thing for the Potawatomi tribe is to keep their culture alive, and they are doing very well at it. When we were kids, the most valuable information we acquire is from our parents. The children of these Potawatomi children taught them their culture through song, art, stories, traditions, and observations. The most important popular story of the Potawatomi tribe is that of Pocahontas. Her real name is actually Matoka. The meaning of Pocahontas is spoiled child or naughty one, as told on ancient.org. She was a volunteer of sorts to help Jamestown settlers get food, but she was captured for ransom because Pocahontas' father had taken English prisoners. She was held hostage for a very long time and is actually baptized as Rebecca because a certain John Rolfe wanted to marry her, so he got her out of holding and married her. And he basically used her as a symbol of peace and coming together of the natives and the English. This campaigning took place in Virginia, and as they returned back home, Pocahontas got sick, and there are many different illnesses that people say she had, but she died at a believed age of 21. So through these stories, the native children can properly be educated about their culture instead of through Disney, which is widely inaccurate. What do they believe? The Potawatomi Nation has a very specific value statement, and it is very important to them. These are almost like the Ten Commandments or oaths. Number 1, maintain, protect, and nurture our culture and spiritual and historic values through the celebration of its unique traditions, language, and sovereignty. Number 2, promote education as the cornerstone of our values. Number 3, show pride and support the endeavors of our youth. Number 4, acknowledge, respect, and value the wisdom of our tribal elders with guidance for our future generations. Number 5, honor, respect, and strive for justice by treating all with equality and fairness. Number 6, protect and maintain tribal lands and other natural resources. Number 7, promote, enhance, and sustain the health, safety, and quality of life for all. How do they live? Like a lot of Native American tribes, the Potawatomi people are hunters and gatherers. The soil in which they lived did not permit the tribe to do much with agriculture, but they did have some crops. They lived in long houses. Generally, long houses are used in the summertime. The main purpose for the long house is to hold many families at a time, keep the rain out, and hold up to 3 fires for night heating purposes. Then we have the wigwam, which is meant for the winter. The main purpose of these shelters was to keep covered from large gusts of wind and snow from the season. The Potawatomi people usually decorated and furnished in fur carpets and coats to keep extra warm. Different from longhouses, wigwams can only hold up to 2 families. One of the major traditions and celebrations is called the Great Feast. This occurs at every fall when they harvest their fields and then have a huge feast. It was usually corn and meant that they hunted. After the feast, the dancing that took place symbolized gratitude and to ask for rain to produce better fields for the next harvest and for the protection of their fields. What do they believe? Potawatomi believe that there are many forces or divinities on this earth and in heaven that provide them with different things. For example, when they plant crops, they pray to a certain divinity to provide them with rain, and when they get it, they pay worship to that divinity. Another huge belief of the Potawatomi is medicine. These people think that of medicine in a sacred sense. There is a huge list of herbs and plants that they use to mix together to make a medicine, and they go by what's called a medicine wheel. There are 4 categories of medicine help: 1 spiritual, 2 mental, 3 emotional, 4 physical. The shamans can essentially prescribe spiritual cures.
So for my first cultural artifact, I chose to do it on St. Rose Philippine Duchesne's Memorial Park and Shrine, which is located in Parker, Kansas. Almost 170 years ago, Jesuit priests accompanied several thousand Potawatomi Indians from around the Great Lakes to Lynn County, Kansas, which is also known as the Trail of Death. As we learned in class, the westward expulsion of the Indians was a continuation of the American government policy to force native Indians out so that the white settlers could use the land. Many were baptized Catholics, and they established a Christian community with the church, called St. Mary's of Sugar Creek. Nuns from St. Charles, Missouri, came to educate the Potawatomi tribe, and amongst them was Rose Philippine Duchesne, who on July 3rd, 1988, was canonized a saint. She was a French nun and member of the Religious Sisters of Sacred Heart of Jesus. When she arrived in Kansas, she was actually in poor shape, but with her love of God and of the Indians, she was inspired to serve the Potawatomi tribe. So, to remember the lives and work of St. Rose Philippine Duchesne and others who helped the Potawatomi tribe, the original site of the community has been made into a park that can contribute to being a spiritual, educational, and recreational opportunity. The entrance to the park, as you can see, is a style gate, and once you're inside, there is a detailed memorial that records all the events that happened during the Trail of Death, which describes the many weeks of misery and death which brought the Indians to Kansas. At the site of the original church, a large altar and cross have been erected. Throughout the park, there are several rock monuments that tell the story of how the Indians and clergy ministered to each other's needs. In an open field, there is a burial ground where 7 crosses list the names of over 600 baptized Indian Catholics that were buried there. The last artifact I chose is in another park called Bailey Homestead in Chelberg Farm, which is located in South Shore, Indiana. I chose this park because I believe that it ties into a lot of what we learned this semester about tribes being misrepresented and dehumanized through these parks. As an article called "No Longer Circling the Wagons, Many National Parks Get Indian Stories Wrong." This article states that National Parks Service interpretation of our history is incomplete, and it usually leaves out the native stories, and when it does tell a native story, all too often it is through the eyes of other people, the way it has been done in too many movies. A less example of that can be found at the Indiana Dunes National Seashore, which tells of the Potawatomi tribe through experiences of a white man named Joseph Bailey. A sign at the Bailey homestead explains that he bought fur, beaver fur, and other items from the Potawatomi in exchange for various trade goods. Another sign says that the U.S. gave Bailey $6,000 for counseling the Potawatomi when they sold their land in the Chicago Treaty of 1833. But what the sign does not say is what he did in those negotiations that made United States government so grateful. Nor does the sign finish the story, which is that the Potawatomi ended up on the Trail of Death westward across the Mississippi.
Hello, my name is Sinan or Sino. I'm going to talk about the current issues surrounding the Potawatomi Nation. First, I will start with economics. One of the issues that I noticed while I was doing my research is the sales tax that they have to apply to their sales because of the city of Shawnee's obligation. And according to Sam Navarre, they don't have the right to do so, but they are doing it anyways, and this is affecting the community's business negatively. And the second thing is more of a concern, not really an issue. Sam Navarre, who is the District 13 challenger, says that currently they are doing fine economically because of the money that comes from casinos. But in the future, other states are going to also open casinos as well, and he says that it's going to increase the competition and affect their business and income negatively. And in health and family, this is one of the issues that we are all familiar of, which is drug and alcohol abuse. And according to Desiree Coffey, who is the family preservation program overseer, these issues affect the kids the most, and therefore they are trying to solve these issues, but it's very sensitive, and they have to be very careful while they are dealing with the families, because some people tend, according to what she says in the interview, some people tend to take advantage of their service. And another problem that I noticed is the diabetes and depression. According to American Indian health officials Brian Thompson, a third of all diabetics are depressed in these tribes, and it's creating a lot of issues. And they are trying to solve it, but they just started realizing the seriousness of the issue very recently. So it's kind of like a piled up stress. And the third and the last but not the least issue is assimilation and the concern of losing traditional knowledge, which is something we are familiar with by the readings we have done so far. And in this section, I have two quotes from two separate people. One of them is Sam Navarre again, and according to what he says, it never ceased. It didn't stop with the Indian wars of 1800s, but it continued and is still in effect. And they are on alert on this subject. And the second example that I noticed is from the professor at Sunny College of environmental science and forestry. Her name is Robin Wall Kimmerer. Of course, she relates this subject to her field. She emphasizes this issue to her field, and she says that they need to combine the traditional knowledge and the modern Western knowledge together and it shouldn't be disregarded, because the traditional knowledge has lots to teach to us till today. And these are all the things that I have noticed so far. Thanks for listening. Have a good one.